I want to welcome Julie Seaver. Thank you for joining us. We were just doing
Hey.
it's a little pre-show chatter. We're talking about how people were feeling this week. We were all in different ways. We're feeling like a little bit of pressure. I was feeling a little bit of pressure. Rose up in New York was feeling like, kind of been pressurized, like it was kind of getting to her, and like he was feeling the same thing. And we're feeling it like in different ways, coming from different places, but feeling kind of like this weight on us. And so I find that interesting when people in different places and the forces of weightiness seem to be coming from different directions, but we all seem to be feeling it. So I find that really fascinating. How are you today, Julie?
Well, I am feeling frustrated.
Mm.
I love succulents, and I left my succulents out last night and it poured. And so these little raindrops burst from too much water. So
Oh,
I can't seem to keep them alive. And it's frustrating me because it's not out of neglect. I think I love them too much. So
oh.
I got to save them. So that's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to save my baby plant.
So this is interesting because this is about the topic Taylor and I were going to talk about. We're going to read that story or excerpts from Taina, but the title was "When Love Is Not Enough," and in your case, Julia, it could be "When Love Is Too Much." When love is too much, especially when it comes to your relationship with those little succulents right there. So, but at any rate, I do want to welcome everyone, and for those who are who have joined us on the live stream, it's always such a joy to do this on Sunday mornings with you guys. As always, Taylor and I read excerpts from a. Where is Taylor, by the way? Did we lose her? Oh,
It's been silent too long. Oh
it's been
no, we did.
We did. So Taylor is probably trying to get back. Taylor is in Ocala right now. They have come down from Tennessee and they are visiting her father for a week. And she was sure that the signal was going to be okay, but it might not be. So we're going to see if she is able to join us again. But anyway, we do this every Sunday, read excerpts from a particular story, and then talk about the broader issues and the themes that come up in the story. So today, Taylor had picked Taina, which is a story that I wrote about a relationship I had when I had fallen in love with a woman who's a Seventh-day Adventist. And so the relationship was, to say closeted would probably be an understatement. So there, I found myself, I had been a political activist for gay rights. I had moved out of the house so I could live an authentic life and all of this. And there I was, falling in love with a woman, and being in a relationship in which I had to remain completely in the closet. And so we had to kind of weave a web of lies to keep our relationship a secret. So I did that for about 3 years, 4 years, I think, 4 years. And so one of the dynamics is that, and I had to really be honest, that part of it was that there was a part of me that understood that, but I also had this parallel running fantasy that if I loved her enough and if we loved each other enough, that we could make the impossible possible.
That it would work.
That it would work. That it would work. But that was not to be.
Well, I think too, it was the circumstance, she didn't want to leave the situation she was in at all, ever, and if she had ever had the will to make the relationship work like you did, it might have been different. But it takes two to do that, you know, and it's sad when that's not there both ways, because you would have gone to the ends of the world to have kept it, you know, just the two of you, and she didn't want to leave where she was or face judgment from anybody else, you know, or judgment from her family and the church that she was a part of.
Yeah, well, I mean, speaking of crushing forces, right? So you have someone who's, you know, and she was Dominican, and they, you know, there's a sense like her sense of family, sense of community, sense of church was so very strong. And so I realized after the relationship that, and she was the only woman I ever asked to marry me. Like, you know, honestly, what was I thinking? You know, that was, talk about kind of a crazy thing to ask, but you know, in her
You're
response,
thinking you loved her.
yep, and it was, you know, it's I forgot what I was going to say about that. Oh yeah, so her community, the religion, the family, and everything was so big in her life that she would have lost everything. And in the Seventh-day Adventist Church, if you go against the doctrine of the church, what they do is they erase you. I mean, that's actually a word that's used. You're erased.
Yeah.
That's like the word that, you know, and so that was a fear. She didn't want to be erased, because if she was erased from the church, then she probably would be erased from her family, erased from the community. And so when you think about it, someone makes a decision for one person in their life, the person that they love. You know, let's say, you know, she did love me, but would our love have been strong enough to endure such loss? And I have to honestly, you know, look at that. And so, and I also had to really look at, like, why was that the decision? Why was that my choice? Like, how did I get myself into that kind of situation? And so in retrospect, I'm sure, Anoki, I mean, I understand what you're saying. But I also think that in the end, I had to look at how I had gotten there. You know, like,
Yeah, and what you were asking for.
that's right. You know, how did I get, you know, like, how did it come to be that was my choice? You know,
And that's true. Yeah.
you know, that was,
You know, Patti,
yeah.
I reread Taina this morning,
Mm-hmm.
and it reminded me of a conversation I had this week with someone who I consider very wise, and is kind of like a guide in my life. And I was sitting there talking with her and listing, mind you,
Mm-hmm.
ways that the previous person I was with was so unavailable.
Mm-hmm.
And I went through the whole list: unavailable sexually, their first kiss never worked, unavailable time-wise, blah, 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 blah. And she looked at me and said, and wasn't that very convenient for you, who's totally unavailable, yet thinks you are and loves to pick unavailable people so that you can say, see, she's unavailable and I am. So she was seeing her as a mirror image of me.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it was very interesting point. Very interesting point.
And there's a, you know, I mean, and Rose, I think you mentioned this too, but like, I spent a lot of years in therapy, you know, and then I experienced what they call the imago therapy.
Oh, please.
Right. Which is, you know,
I just went through it.
Right. And, you know, you know, and I want to know, because like, I think everyone, you know, well, not everyone on this call, but yeah, okay. So there are some mirrors. Yes, Ashley,
Yes.
absolutely mirrors. But you know, for women in relationships with other women, one of the things that I underestimated was how much the dynamics between myself and my mother came to play in the dynamics in my relationships with other women. You know, not so much my relationship, the dynamics with my father, which were not that great, but like, for those of us who had, for instance, relationships with mothers who weren't really available emotionally, then does it follow that, in our lesbian relationships, we are going to pursue relationships with women who are not emotionally available and kind of set ourselves up in that way? And that is something that I've personally had to take a look at, because I think for heterosexual women, I think it's different, but for lesbian women, I think our relationship with our mothers kind of weighs in pretty heavily and can influence the kind of women we choose. Do any of you
Yeah,
find that possible,
I
relevant to you?
I feel like that. Like my mom, is extremely loving, but I kind of had like maybe like a little bit of a relationship, kind of like you had with Taina, with my mom, in the sense that my mom loved me, I loved my mom, but we were both stuck in this like ultra Christian world, and my mom's views didn't always align with their views. My mom never persecuted me, but everybody else in the family did, but I did, I was like, I called it like respectful of like certain church situations that I was in. Like I never, needed to come out of a closet, but I never had a closet to be in to begin with,
Mm.
like, and then I just was already wrong in the eyes of like all these people, so I like made peace with that because I had love with my mom that was like forever and undying, but my mom, when it came to like confrontational things and stuff, my mom isn't really that person, like she'll fight for like good things, like if somebody cuts somebody out, she'll stand up for somebody, um in certain situations, but she's always loving, and I think it definitely made me a really loving individual. I took like a lot of our relationship, because it was like the most beautiful thing in my young life, and decided I wanted relationships like that, and I wanted friendships like that, and I wanted to love people, truly and sincerely, and tell everyone the warm fuzzy story, and wrap them in that part of what I had there, but we did have that crazy confliction with the church and everything. It just somehow never, like, it affected us, but it didn't, like we just knew that it was something we would always battle, but knew that our love was always there, even if we couldn't be right together for certain things, or if I couldn't bring a girlfriend to, a church function, I mean, like it wasn't, they, my mom wasn't persecuting me. She just didn't want a war everywhere we went,
Mhm.
like,
Mhm.
and I didn't want a war everywhere I went either, so
Mm.
like, I
Mhm.
don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like my mom's had a huge part in every relationship in my life.
Yeah, I mean, and so in a way, you may have mirrored the way that she loved, and which is that she was very loving and very forgiving, and sometimes in the relationships she had, and maybe to some extent to an extreme,
Yeah,
how much she would
yeah, like
accept.
the things that I've lived through were extreme, and the only thing that made a lot of them okay was the fact that I had this like incredible agape, undying, forever real love with my mom, so it didn't matter what we were going through because we had that love.
Mm. Rose, were you going to interject here?
No, I mean, I think I've shared on this call before that I'm just in a state of complete transition, that I don't even know. Mirrors, maybe my mother in it, possibly her mother in it, definitely both our mothers in it. The point I'm at though is feeling like I'm gonna be blunt. When does this fucking end. When, and I know it's all a process, we're in it for our lives, but I feel like every time I think I'm done with my ACOA issues, adult children of alcoholic issues, every time I think I'm done with abandonment issues, every time I think I'm really available, I come to realize I'm really not.
You mean when you say done and when you say available, do the two have to go together? In other words, when you say, when does it end, what is it? And if
the struggle with these issues keep rearing their head in so many different ways. And I think you're making a very good point that they can all exist and you can still be available at the same time.
Yeah.
I think it's a very good point.
I think we're all wounded, Rose. And the thing is like, I have this thing about language, and I'm not saying I'm perfect, but like, I look at language and how I frame things, and that really determines how I think about it and then how I act about it and so forth. And so what I hear you talking about is the healing process. Like what I understand is the healing process. Like, and I honestly don't think that the healing process, for me, I don't think it'll ever end. I think that I will continue to heal. I mean, because it's my desire to. It's my desire to heal deeper and deeper wounds. Not everybody wants to do that. I mean, some folks are just like, hey, I'll live a mediocre life and I'll watch my shows and, drink my beer and smoke my smoke and, I'll do that thing, where I don't really want to dive deep, I mean, there are a lot of people diving deep is a challenging process. And so some of us are dedicated to it, and I have no judgments about people who don't really dive deep, but like for me, it feels like a healing process. Like this whole book, this memoir was part of my healing process, but I'm not done. I'm not finished. I have far more to go. And I feel like it just for me, the process gets a little deeper as I go. And I also think that what is helpful is to kind of frame it as that it's part of me becoming the best human I can be. So when I meet someone, and I'm endeavoring to do that, it's quite a process, and it's I'm not going to say it's been easy, but when I meet that one, right, I'm going to have to be honest and say I'm available to love, but I'm still I'm still working through my shit, and I'm going to be working through my shit for the rest of my life. And I hope that, because I think like there is some healing that can happen when we're single, and then there's deeper, richer healing that happens within a relationship.
I agree.
There are places you can go. There are just places you can go in a relationship in terms of the healing process that is really they're just hard to do when you're single. Yeah.
I think too, you're always changing and evolving. Like every situation you go through in life, like good or bad, puts you in a new place. Like life's a big mountain, and you're climbing this mountain. To climb the mountain, you're never going to turn around and look at the view and the view be the same, so as you reach these different platforms, on this mountain of life, you can see things from a different angle. You were at the bottom with all of it, and then you were a little above it, you have moments where you slide down a little bit, but you're always looking at it from a different point of view. And every day, anything that comes up can trigger a different thought process of the same thing. You can think about the same thing 5 million different ways, and you can take it in 5 billion different ways, like it's all about how you're translating it in the moment, and where your core beliefs and values are, and when you settle with your core beliefs and values, that's when you start to make peace. But there's always changing aspects of that, but that's the beauty of it, is mastering everything, the good, the bad, all of it, and at the end of it all, being able to say, I've seen this from so many different angles, and I've seen it from so many different views, and I know it in and out. And the more you know something, the less that it can really bother you, because as humans, when we are given a reason, even whatever the reason is, whoever it's from, if at that time, we invite that in, like, we'll believe that, so our outside influences also have, big persuasions on the way that we look at our own situations, but it's all opinions and it's all experience. And even the hard parts are beautiful, because when you come out of that storm, and everything's clear, and you see the beautiful landscape and the dewy looking field, and the rays of sun shooting out of the cloud, you're like, wow, I'm so glad that I made it through all that crap so that I could see this beautiful moment in life.
Right.
Yeah.
So it doesn't end.
Yeah, and I think that I think we're so conditioned in our culture to think in those linear kind of terms, like, I'm going to do this, and like happiness happens when I've achieved this, or when I've gained that, or when I have this, and you know what I mean, like it's really not. I think so much of what's going on in our culture and throughout the world is humans discovering that the ways that we've been taught to live our lives and think about our lives is kind of been upside down and kind of messed up. And so many people, Rose, are going through this process that you're experiencing, and so many of us are experiencing, where we really have to kind of figure out our own way of navigating to being the best humans we can be, or navigating to our own definition of happiness, or or navigating our ways into healthy relationships, or
recognizing the balance.
Yeah,
like there has to be night to be day, and there has to be some bad to be good, like you wouldn't really know what good was if it was all you ever had, and that makes it extra beautiful when you live through hard stuff and experience good.
I couldn't agree more. But I think also what this person I was talking about was alluding to with me is something you mentioned, Anoki, of core beliefs and values. I think sometimes I question whether I have walked around thinking I want this happily ever after life with somebody, because I have been conditioned to think that's what life should be. You meet somebody, you fall in love, and who would ever think that I like to think of myself as a radical in so many ways, was somewhere holding this belief, this should, that that's what you should strive for in relationship. And if it doesn't end there, then you are a failure.
Right.
And I think that's what my friend was alluding to in saying, you think you're available for all that, but I have never seen somebody who's happier being single than you. Like, you need to deal with the fact that you love saying, I'm throwing the dogs in the car and I'm going to Lake Worth, or I'm doing this, or I'm roaming here, and that's what I'm grappling with is, did I take people hostage to think that I wanted that belief, and then kind of held them hostage until I figured out I didn't? Or do I really want that? I'm just trying to figure it all out.
Yeah.
And it's not a bad thing. I don't feel like I'm beating myself up over it or all of that. I really don't.
Good.
I feel like it's just, I think I've shared on this call that I spent a tremendous amount of time alone through this pandemic in the woods, So I have a lot of time to think and write and talk and, study and do all of that. And a lot of things are coming up for me, which are great. It's great. But letting go of those false beliefs leaves one a little more naked every time you let go of them.
Sure.
That's what I'm saying.
Sure. Because it's like, because as, as maybe unhealthy or, they didn't, those anchors did not support your growth. Like
Correct.
what supports your growth is pulling up the anchors and letting your boat flow with the current. But there's an awful lot of uncertainty in that analogy.
Yeah,
There's a lot more security in the anchors.
correct.
I think for me, as I get older, over the years, when I'm thinking about my relationship with my mom, who has always been, we love each other and we support each other, but it's always been at arm's length. And as I get older and I'm in a long-term relationship, we've had our problems over the years, but when I talk about my relationships with other people, it might not be a popular decision, but I think that I've learned to stop breaking myself down into bite-sized pieces to serve others. I just want to stay whole and let them joke on all of me. I don't know what else to say that.
I love
Not
that.
so much in an angry mode, but more of in a confidence that this is all of me.
Right.
And I will pay attention to my own stuff. And that is all of you. And I will accept all of you and what you're willing to give me. But at the same time, having the confidence, I don't know, maybe I'm thinking that, for years, I always thought, oh, I want to be just like my grandmother. She always said and did exactly what she wanted to do, exactly what she wanted to say. And I'm at the point where I'm like, why do I have to wait 20 years to be that old woman who, well, she's older, so she can say whatever she wants, or she can do whatever she wants. At this point, I'm at the point where I think if you're paying attention to my business, then who is paying attention to your business? Because if you're over here paying attention to my business, then nobody's looking at your business, and you need to be looking at your own business. So
Your side of the road.
I didn't think about my relationship with my mom until you both started talking, that we've always loved each other, but it's always been at arm's length. And so in my love relationships with women, I could say, it sounds sad, but I've learned to keep that I'm going to die for you love at arm's length. Like, I can't be responsible for your happiness because I got my own stuff going on and I have my own goals and my own life dreams. And I certainly hope that you're along for the ride. I think that's where I've always been, but not really paid attention to it.
Yeah,
I think that's what everybody needs, is that partner in crime, that ride or die forever. If you just wanna, I don't have to call you, you're just here, like I don't need to ask you for this because you already had it in your hand, type of stuff. And I think that a healthy relationship is one that things just happen in, and that if you're shaping or trying to form or forcing or causing, like restrictions, or you feel like you can't say certain things, then it's not worth being in. And Patty will tell you every time, things start to get weird or something, I'll tell Patty, I'll call Patty, I'll be like, it's just weird, and if it's not better soon, I'm just gonna be done, and I will, and then some miraculous thing will happen and communication will be better, and it'll all smooth itself out, and it's worth being a part of. So if you're forcing somebody to be in something, or you can't get those nice smooth then get out of the water, but if it's working out for you, stay in the boat and enjoy the ride, like,
I mean, I loved what you said about Julie, about not being responsible for someone's happiness. I think so much, like if we think about like the culture that we grow up in, in those crazy lines from movies, like you complete me, I complete you. It's like, oh dear God. Oh my God. Like how, wow, we've just been so culturized to really believe that we are here to complete someone, that we are not whole on our own, especially women, and that in that we are responsible for someone else's happiness. And I certainly felt that way, in relationships. I felt this personal responsibility for that. And I also think like that definitely comes from, that's remnants from my relationship with my mother, because it is definitely clear, like there are aspects of my life that she might be happy with, and then aspects of my life that she is not. And I would agree with you too, Julie, about not wanting to parcel myself up anymore. That she and just about anyone at this point in my life kind of gets the whole picture, the whole thing. But it's taken me a long time to come to that for myself, to be in a place where I'm willing to offer that up and be that vulnerable, to say this is me, it's all of me. Like I think anybody who wants to go out with me should read my memoir first and then make a decision.
It'll be Patty's basic checklist. Have you read the
my memoir?
Right. Do you play chess? Do you
Please
paint?
read chapters 4 through 7
Yeah.
before you
All
make a
disclaimers
decision.
made.
Yeah. So I mean, I look, Julie, you are in a long-term relationship right now, so I'm gonna, if you mind me asking you a couple of questions. All right. I know you probably don't think of yourself as like, a role model or whatever, but as far as, I mean, like, as far as someone though, who is in a long-term relation, and I'm not saying it has to be perfect, but you and Penny have a relationship that works. And so so my first question is, what do you remember your decision-making process at the beginning, like deciding whether or not this was a woman you really wanted to, first of all, to date, and then of course to have a more committed relationship with? Do you remember that process? And would you like to share?
Oh yeah. Well, absolutely. So I think that in our first 5 years of our relationship, I'm sitting outside. Can you still hear me?
Yes.
A
Wait,
lot of
Julie,
wind, a lot of cars.
can I just
Yeah.
ask, how long is your relationship? How long have you been in this?
This June. Hold on, my umbrella's blowing away. My umbrella is blowing away, and I don't want it to hit Federal Highway.
Yeah.
Oh no.
So I think that when Penny and I first met, there was an instant attraction. And so for the first, and my daughter at the time when we first started dating was 8. She had just turned 8. So we've been together for 15 years now. So,
Wow.
So
You're the Allie and Ray of Palm Beach.
Wow.
Right. So in the beginning of our relationship, it was, hot and heavy and all of those things when you are first dating someone. We did not U-Haul it, against that stereotype. I really thought about, because my daughter lived with me at the time, that I didn't want her to be subject to off and on again relationships. And so I did live a life for the first 5 years of our relationship, wearing the different hats. So when Penny was with, or when Alex was with her other parent, that was time for Penny and I to be together, that I was the girlfriend, and I was living my best life. And then when Alex was with me, that was my time as a mom, and only a mom. And so I separated my time in, I don't know why I did that. I think that I did that for protection of, originally I would say protection of my daughter.
Mm.
But now I'm thinking in this discussion about our relationships with our mom, that maybe it was more in protection of myself.
Mhm.
And that I could chunk out a piece of my life if it didn't work out, whatever that looked like, and the rest of my lives will all be intact.
Mhm.
So
Right.
thinking about that, you know, and then in years 6 through 10, we grew into a comfortability. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean that in,
A flow.
yeah, that we will accept each other's faults and, you know, characteristics that are long ingrained into us. We're both adults. We've been on this earth a long time. And our relationships changed as our roles changed in the community. And we were okay. Like if we would go out together, which was very rare, mostly because Penny's always worked nights. I met her, go figure, in a bar in Wilton Manors. She was bartending then. And so I do remember that I did spend a lot of time by myself. And I think I'm spending more time by myself now. My daughter is going to be 24 in April, and she has her own life. And she works nights and she goes to school. And Penny, of course, still works nights the majority of the time. And so I'm preferring my time at home by myself.
Mhm.
There's a comfortability in knowing that those 1 or 2 nights a week that Penny and I'll have together on our own, like I relish those times.
Mhm.
Sunday afternoons are our time. She doesn't work, I don't work, and usually Alex is gone. Wednesday evenings, we come together as a family because Penny doesn't work on Wednesdays. Alex doesn't work on Wednesday evenings. And I know that that's our time together as a
Mhm.
family, the family that we've created. So I think that our relationship has gone through different reiterations over time. And I'm okay with that.
Mhm.
It
We're not the same
adapts and
people.
it's fluid.
Yeah, we're not the same people that we were when we first got together. Things are definitely shifting on our bodies. But we still have to be okay with those changes. And I really enjoy watching your journey, Patti, when you talk about the body and nutrition and mindfulness, because I now am getting to the point in my life where I have to pay attention to those things. I don't get to just wake up and, you know, fit in my pants and be able to eat the same things that I used to be able to eat without getting like the worst heartburn ever.
Yeah.
And so sometimes those things make me feel down about myself.
Mhm.
And, but you know, Penny and I are going through the change of life together. And we still like each other. So
That's awesome. That is.
That's it. Like you guys have core beliefs pretty much align. You know, you realize you both are individuals and you're just along for the ride together, and that's what makes it work. You know, nobody's fighting anybody. You both realize you have life goals. You know, they line up together. You know, even though they're in different directions, they come together. You know, like, and that's the important part. Is acceptance of change over time, you know.
Yeah. I wanted to ask, you know, there's a concern, and I know that I've done this in the past, and I don't think that I don't think I'm as vulnerable to doing it again, like in a new relationship. And that's the issue of codependency, like having a codependent relationship. So how, I mean, like you in Penny's relationship does not seem like a codependent relationship. And so, but I've been around people who definitely were like, I can recognize it. And, you know, and I kind of in retrospect recognized it in relationships that I had before. I wanted to ask, like, how do you think about that, Julie? And is that something that you have experienced in the past and develop grew out of? Like, was that, you know what I mean? Because that is something that's a big issue.
Yeah, I think that we never had a codependent relationship until we lost each other one summer 5 years ago now. Like, we lost each other, and that's when I realized that I was feeling codependent towards her. She was feeling codependent towards me, and we stopped talking to each other, and she just basically disappeared for a few months. And so coming back together, I did develop a codependency during that time period of trust and rebuilding our relationship. And a lot of it was looking at myself. What did I take for granted in our relationship? And not so much as in blaming other people or Penny, but what was my part in the breakdown of our relationship? And once I let go of that codependent feeling, like I'm just not going to make it, I was okay. And as we get older, and especially during COVID, we've lost a lot of people that we know too young, whether it be to cancer or complications of COVID or suicide or all of these things, car accidents. It feels like in my mind, I am, sounds a little weird, but in my mind, I'm breaking up in little, small, manageable pieces what my life would be like if I suddenly lost Penny. And I think I'm doing that in the same way that I did when my grandmother was alive, because we were very close. That, of course, I would be very sad, but life will go on. I have a purpose. I am somebody's daughter, somebody's mom, somebody's sister, somebody's friend. And so all of those pieces from me will continue to live on if I let them. And so I don't feel that we're in a codependent relationship. And the only time that I felt that we were was when we weren't together, if that makes sense.
So it does seem like that period of time when you were away from each other was probably a time that was a very, it ended up being a very, very growthful time for both of you. So that when you came together stronger in a way, like their relationship was stronger because
I feel
of,
that.
yeah, what you both went through. So I think, like when relationships, like I think relationships have to go through whatever they have to go through so they can, you know, go to deeper levels or become stronger and more healthy. And so that may have just been the way that it looked at the time. So during that time, you explored this whole thing of codependency and kind of came out on the other end, it seems like. So it's fascinating to hear the process of what people go through in long-term relationships, Julie, because I haven't really had a relationship longer than like 7 years. So it's, you know, so I find this interesting. I don't mean to like keep asking you questions, but I do find it interesting.
I mean, it's really some things that, you know, that I mean, by asking questions, it really forces me to think about the different lifetimes that I've gone through and that Penny and I have gone through together. It's just, I don't really think about those things in this higher thinking time. So I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it. I'm kind of like coming to my own and realizations in these calls and in these discussions.
It's
People
funny,
don't ask.
it's funny how like you know, when you go through trauma, any kind of trauma, you know, you learn from that trauma and you prepare yourself for any kind of trauma like that in the future, you know. And sometimes, you know, you got to look at what's going on, you know, and really look at it and live it over in your head 100 different ways, you know, because you realize maybe you didn't handle it the way you wanted to handle it the first time, you know. And that's part of like the growth process and all of that too, you know. I really liked how you said that, Julie. I think it's important to know, you know, that it's okay to go through something and you know, prepare yourself for failure, expect success, you know, hope for success, walk towards and fight for success, but prepare yourself for every possible outcome, you know, because anything can happen any day, you know. And at the end of the day, if you know your self-worth, you know, and what you mean to yourself and to others and to people around you and how you touch people and how you're in their lives, you know, then you know, it's gonna you know, it's gonna go somewhere from there. You know, you're definitely gonna, you know, succeed. And even when you don't succeed, you're already ready for that, you know, and you're ready to stand back up, you know. So accepting that failures are going to happen and preparing for them is good, but expecting them is bad.
You know, it's interesting listening to all of you. I was in a 16-year relationship. And one of the things that happened there for me was, you know, Penny, you're talking about the different transitions that your relationship went through, the different stages, and accepting the different stages. What happened for me after about 12 of those years was that I couldn't accept the stage that many lesbian relationships fall into, which is that we're becoming like sisters or I don't know, the passion, the sexual passion, it was gone. It was gone. And I felt like I couldn't conceive of getting it back because it was almost like it became like a sister relationship almost. Now I'm 5 years older. I've been out of that relationship for 5 or 6 years. And as I get older, I wonder, I've said this on this call so many times, I just don't know about anything anymore. I don't have any answers, which is, I guess, a wonderful place to be. But I think back on that decision is what I'm trying to say. I think back on that decision and wonder, as older women, you know, what role that all still plays.
Are you talking about the sexual intimacy in a relationship?
I'm talking about the sexual intimacy, that sexual connection that often in lesbian relationships falls by the wayside.
I think that's a huge question, and I'm not sure it gets talked about enough. But it is, and I don't think lesbians want to talk about it or like to talk about it, but I definitely think that we should. And my opinion is that the sexual intimacy in any relationship, heterosexual, it doesn't matter, gay, doesn't matter, lesbian, should never fall away. That the sexual intimacy in a relationship is really important. And that kind of connection is really, really important. And so why does this phenomenon happen in lesbian relationships. I don't really have the answer for that. I mean, I have some speculation about it. And but I definitely think that it's something that in any relationship, if the sexual intimacy is falling away, then then the healthy thing to do would be to address it and to figure out how to keep the sexual intimacy not only alive but thriving in
Right.
a relationship, not just like obligatory, right? You don't want obligatory, sex
I
either.
agree with you.
Yeah.
I agree
think-
with you.
I think
I
for
think-
women though, we're we have sex drives. Our sex drives, climb also. Like the older that I get, the more interested, I am. But I think that women are not, we're not pumped full of testosterone, one, and two, like we have levels of testosterone, but like our sex drive compared to like the male sex drive isn't really the same, because it's primal almost, on the male side of things, because they have a hormone that's consistently causing that, where a lesbian relationship, typically, you don't have a testosterone filled sex drive. You have a estrogen filled sex drive, and you have cycles, and you have, things like that. And I think when you're, cycling together and everything, like we come together for intimate moments, and that makes our intimacy so much more than a requirement or a necessity or a time. Did you get your daily whatever in, because each time it's special, and it's more, it's not as it is sexually driven, but it's not as sexually driven, it's more mind and body, and so there's moments and times for that, whereas like a hetero or a gay, you could, it's a 2-minute objective most of the time, and that can be attained just about anywhere at any time, like don't get me wrong, there's people, who have like long intimate moments. I'm not saying that this is everybody in boxes, because I don't believe in boxes at all. I just think, maybe our own physical human anatomy has a little bit to play with that, as to why.
Oh, it definitely does.
Yeah. Also the moon, cycle, everything that affects our period, affects our sex organs, affects our sex drive, like each other affects our sex organs, our periods, and our sex drive, so you have to be mind, body, and soul in a lesbian relationship, and that's what does set them totally apart from most other relationships,
I definitely think that all of you hit all the points exactly perfect, because it sounds higher thinking and, very spirited. Oh, mind, body, and soul. But it really is mind, body, and soul. You have to be able to communicate and talk about it. If you're feeling, waning intimacy, you have to be able to talk about it. And when you stop talking about it, then it becomes the elephant in the room, or the elephant not in the room.
Yes.
As we're both going through the change together, we started talking about it, and I couldn't figure things out. I'm 51 and he's 54. And I finally brought it up to my gynecologist, and I'm like, listen, you never asked me these questions, but this is what I'm going through, and I don't like it. So, she was very good, and she is one of the local authorities on hormones and what those mean. And so she prescribed for me a plant-based testosterone. And let me tell you, in 3 days, I was like, oh, okay.
That's right.
I get it now. So So
Yeah.
it is a little bit of communication
Yeah.
and what you're feeling up here, down there in your body.
Absolutely.
There's lots of different things, and it's all about choice, but you have to have these communications not only with your life partners and your intimate partners, but also with your providers, especially women as they get older, because those things take a toll on your body. The loss of testosterone, the loss of estrogen, those things wreak havoc in your body. And so it is a personal choice,
Mhm.
which direction you want to go in, but you have to have those conversations with your doctor. And if your doctor is not willing to listen to you and help you through it, you need to find a new one.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
And you got to have these conversations with your partner, because communication is key. And, the more that you can talk to somebody about something, the more that they can relate to you. If you don't let them know where you're coming from or what you're feeling or what you're thinking or what you're into or what, if you don't have that communication or connection, mentally as well, you're both shooting out into the dark. You're not going to be able to figure
Yeah.
out what's going on if you have a problem,
Yeah.
but if you have a solid relationship, you could say, anything that's going on with you, and your partner should be able to understand or relate to that too, and build a solution.
Right.
Patricia, I wanted to ask you about that. Like,
Yeah.
was it hot and heavy between you and, I'm sorry,
Taina?
Taina? Was it hot and heavy when you were just together? And obviously she had a lot of fears. Like you said, she loved you, she wanted to be with you, but the fear of so much loss in her life, she just couldn't overcome that. But what was the feeling when you were together? Do you think it was mutual?
Yeah, I thought that it was mutual. And what we did was we kind of created a little bubble around us. And this was our little reality bubble. And we lived in this little reality bubble. We kind of created this private little reality bubble where we could have this secret, beautiful thing together. And then the moment we stepped out the door, that we had to leave the reality bubble behind. And that's kind of that's how we lived. That's how we did our relationship. So there were some very beautiful, we had very beautiful times. And it was a relationship where whatever we did in that reality bubble, it didn't matter. We could be sitting having a cup of coffee and it was beautiful and it was precious. So no matter what we were doing, we completely enjoyed each other's company and treasured that time. And I think that's what made that's what it kind of fed this fantasy that I had, that maybe we could expand our reality bubble and maybe we could make it permanent. Maybe it could be, you know, not just a little fantasy bubble, but like we could live in it forever. And and that wasn't going to happen. So I think in that relationship, I kind of broke my own heart in a way, in that I believed in a I believed in a fantasy that wasn't going to happen. And she was never dishonest with me. She was always honest with me. And even that moment, and the reason why I asked her to marry me was because I was caught up in the moment of a fantasy bubble experience when it was a beautiful morning and everything was absolute perfection. And I thought in that moment of absolute perfection, that would be the moment. That would be the moment she said yes. And what she
Because you
was,
were looking for a fantasy. You were looking for exception, for the exception to all of that. Maybe there'll be one exception. Maybe somehow we can make this work.
Yeah, maybe. Though, even in trying to make it an exception is part, I mean, I had to kind of in retrospect, I had to take responsibility for, kind of like unrealistic thinking, you know, in that. So, but yeah, so her most honest answer was, I can't, in that moment. Yeah. Yeah. So, but that was, it was beautiful. I mean, she lives in Miami now. She belongs to the church. She lives with her family. She sings in the choir and she's happy. She's helping to raise her nieces and nephews. She never got married like she had planned. She never had her own children like she had planned. And so, but she seems happy living with her family, living in the community down there in Miami, being very active in their church, and singing in the choir. And her life seems really, really full, even though she's not partnered, she's not married. But that's the life she chose. And so that is what, I respect. I respect that. That's.
I don't know. A little part of me wants to believe that because she never partnered and married or had children like she had planned, that every once in a while, I mean, that she thinks of what if.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
She's thinking about an exception too.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
it's very possible, but it's not my place. It's not my, you know what I mean? I have to I think that is hers. Like those moments are her moments, and that's part of her journey. But yeah, I'll always cherish the memories and the experiences that we had. The one time that we expanded our little fantasy bubble was when we went on vacation to P-Town, and it was far enough away from New York where there was no chance of anybody recognizing her, no family there, and she was able to be absolutely free. So, for a little over a week, we lived absolutely like a happy newlywed couple, and it was beautiful, so it was just kind of
made the fantasy a reality for a few days.
Exactly. Yeah. It was beautiful. But I think this goes on for a lot of people, and I don't have any regrets. Though it has, over the years, it has been, it has warranted my looking and reflecting on the decisions that I've made, about relationships, like, why I made the decisions that I did, and not to beat myself up, but just to be really conscious of it so that I can continue to grow and heal and develop in ways that will support healthier choices for myself, because I would like to have a relationship like that Julie enjoys, that I would like that in my life. And so I feel like I'm on my way to that. But to be able to have that kind of long-lasting, healthy relationship, that is a desire of mine. So you have to look back, not with regret, but as a way of learning, kind of with a sense of curiosity. That's interesting. That's how that relationship went. Those were my decisions. That's
Hope
interesting.
For the future.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, not even so much as hope, but like, I'm kind of always learning, growing, developing, healing. And so my whole thing is that I want to heal myself into a healthier relationship with myself, and a healthy relationship with a partner, and a healthy relationships all around, so and just to kind of accept that, this is my process. I shouldn't compare myself to anyone, like, oh my God, you're this old, why aren't you this or that?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a clusterfuck of monumental proportion. So I don't want to do that. But so yeah, but that's why in the memoir and in the stories, I wanted to be kind of cringy honest, like, honest to the point. It's like, oh God. this is really hard to write, because I thought
Yeah.
that it was important for the process. But I wanted to just give Robin or Ashley an opportunity if you want to kind of jump in and say a few words before we wrap up. This has been such a lovely conversation today. I wanted to make sure that if you guys wanted to jump in and say a few words, by all means. Maybe not. All right. Well, Julie, in closing, you have a few words in closing before we kind of wrap it up?
I think Robin unmuted herself.
Did Robin unmute herself? Hey,
You're so observant,
there you
Julie.
are.
I love your hat today, Robin.
Let's start the video too. Yeah, the sun's on and off today. It's like really coming and going. And it's so beautiful to be outside, but it's so windy. Oh, for this chapter, is it Taina? I was saying Taina.
Yeah, Taina. It's I named her. Of course, this is a made-up name. That wasn't her real name. But it's after the indigenous tribe that occupied the Dominican Republic, and she's actually that is part of her heritage. So when I made up the name, I called her Taina.
Nice. Yeah, that character resonated with me. The relationship I had with a woman was where I wasn't gay, but I was with a woman. Yeah, so 2.5 years. Like, lived together, loved her from the minute I saw her. She was, so this character, and also the religious aspect too, really resonated with me. Now, I've had other relationships with other people, but that doesn't define sexuality in any way, shape, or form for me personally. There's a lot more words to describe sexuality nowadays than there used to be.
Yeah.
So that's been really cool because and that's something that I've always known without the vocabulary to explain it. You just know what the heart knows. And that's why I think we have to give a lot of respect to Taina, especially when you updated us on where she's at now in life. I think that said a lot about who she is and what came afterwards. And my goodness, for that to be the one person that you put your heart out there for to propose, locking it down in marriage, says so much about that moment in time and that connection that the two of you had that broke all boundaries. I don't know that much about Seventh-day Adventists. I know like Waco. I mean, sorry. But I see them in the country when we drive. I can't say I've spent time with any of them knowing about it. So, and the fact that she's still there, and it also, you mentioned her age being 33 at the time too. And I've seen that play out in every, there are over 30,000, 60,000 different kinds of Christianity, but all of them are well aware that Jesus was 33, and there's just a lot of significance at that age.
I'm 33 right now.
Hey, right on. That's awesome. Anoki. I didn't know that. I thought you were close to mine. That's awesome. Do you feel it? Do you feel the 33, the power of the
I feel so great. Yeah, it's awesome. I'm like assuming a whole new being, and being mom is like
that's so interesting. I never knew your age. You have such an old soul.
I know everybody. Well, I mean, I was down at New Moon drinking when I was like 15 or 14, and like I had my 21st birthday, and Allie ripped me over. Actually, it was Jay's bar. It wasn't even New Moon, and Allie ripped me over the bar, and man, I thought she was gonna beat me up, but she's Allie, so she didn't. And what's it called? That was my 21st birthday. It was like 10 years after hanging out with everybody. So I've always just kind of, been wherever. I think age is just a number, but 33 is good. This is a good age this year. Like I might be, closer to 40 in my mind, but mentally and physically, I almost feel like I'm getting younger the older I get, even though I'm getting older, like, I mean, I got little lines and stuff. I got gray hairs all over, like, and I'm like, this is my power. This is my power. I named this one Fred. This guy right here. But
That's
it's
awesome.
cool.
Yeah. That's awesome. Robin, did you want to add anything more before we wrap up?
Just while I was listening here, and sorry if I was unmuted when my washing machine was going there.
No, we didn't hear.
Okay. You guys in a few different capacities mentioned, just because that's where you guys are coming from, is in same-sex female relationship, but you guys did acknowledge that those do carry over in all other relationships. And I don't doubt that there's specific aspects that that you guys were referring to, but I do think that relationships are very much boundless, regardless of physical form when it comes to I mean, that's just me personally, but like I'm like Anoki mentioning being present in body, mind, and soul, it's a rarity, but it does happen in all relationships, I think, when they're at their best, and I think that was going on in this with Taina as well as, that's where I'm gonna wrap that up. I thought that was good.
Thank you, Robin. Thank you.
Oh, thanks for sharing this part of your life. It's been really, it's really cool. It's really cool, Patti.
Yeah, well, thank you. I mean, and thank you for, making the sharing of it so special. Julie, did you want to say a few last words before we wrap up?
No, I'll just keep waiting for the second book patiently, not so patiently. I'm like, oh, it can't be over now. There's so much more to tell.
There is. And, speaking of which, so by the way, 2 books this year. So we do have Wildflowers and Wooden Spoons, which is the cookbook with the stories from the cafe, which will be really a lot of fun. And then we have, and then another book that I'm working on, which is my personal journey, my postmenopausal journey. It's called This Amazing Body. And it's really my journey towards my own optimal health and wellness in my postmenopausal years. So it's going to be really talking about some of the things that we talked about today, in terms of that, the relationship to body, health, and kind of, and the most important thing, listening to my body and not listening to ideologies or food dogma or anything, just like me.
As I suck down my caffeinated cup of coconut coffee.
There you go.
I've been watching your journey. I'm like, okay, she's getting through. She's getting through
I'm
the no
getting
caffeine.
through. I am. So I'm drinking tea now. So I have, so I'm not completely without caffeine. I drink tea instead of coffee in the morning, and I find that that's really nice. It's a very different kind of caffeine. So that's kind of where I'm at in that journey. So yeah, little by little, just kind of, walking the walk, basically.
I was very surprised. I'm like, she's the coffee lady.
No kidding, right?
I mean,
coffee.
It was your whole life, really.
Yes, exactly. And that's the thing. And I, when I was around your age, when I was started really feeling menopause, I went off coffee for about 4 years, close to 5 years. And I did it because I was really feeling the adrenal fatigue, which means that I would sip half a cup of coffee and I would feel myself moving into an anxiety attack moments later. And it's like, oh no. And that's when you start having those kinds of experiences, then like you have adrenal fatigue and you should step away from the coffee. So I really did have to, and it was menopause that brought that on. So, and then when I went back to drinking coffee in 2019, I started off with that 1 cup in the morning, but then I liked it
Just
so
one.
much. Yeah. And it just kind of, and I started feeling just the little beginnings of that, not feeling so good. And I thought, okay, all right. So let's step away. So, but it's listening to my body and not, because not my addiction, because I really have been so addicted to coffee. So, but at any rate, it's it could be worse. But at any rate, so yeah, so it's a process. It is ironic though that I opened a coffee house. I mean, that I had a coffee house. So
My lighter right now says coffee, no coffee, happy face, smiley face.
exactly, exactly.
I'm like double fisting it over here. I have an energy drink and a coffee.
Oh my God, Anoki. Oh dear God. Well, but she's 30, she's 33 after all, so she can,
Right? That tells your
indestructible,
age right
right?
there.
That tells your age right there. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well,
Is it the process of the making of the tea? Like, I imagine that you have a lovely tea set and you don't purchase pre-bought tea bags, and that there is a tea strainer, and you have like the chai and the milk frother. Like, I picture the whole process
mhm,
from the
Oh, yeah.
lady,
uh-huh.
from
She's
the
teeing
original
like she
Lesbians coffee place, to have a ritual. I think that's what
Yeah.
it is the coffee time for me is a ritual.
Mhm.
And it's a time when everybody else in the house is sleeping, and I can listen to the wind chimes, and I can wake up by myself with a coffee ritual.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm up at 5:30 every morning, and I got my first cup, and I'm sitting out by the water, waiting for the sun to rise, and then blue 30 hits. It's still dark when I wake up, so
Mhm.
like coffee, like yeah, is definitely a huge ritual for me every
Yeah.
day. And it's like that moment of serenity in the morning before the baby gets up, and before I've got to run around and feed dogs and make breakfast, all of that. It's a blessing. Like, I don't want to trade it for anything. I'll keep my coffee addiction a little longer.
Yeah, I mean the ritual in the morning is definitely big, and I did have a coffee ritual that I was very attached to, and that was difficult. So I did need to have a tea ritual, and I do. I have a wide variety of teas. They're loose leaf teas. I have my favorite mug, which is beautiful, and so whatever I'm having in the morning, I have it in that cup. I do get up at 4 in the morning and I sit under the stars with whatever I have in my cup. And so it's all part of this morning ritual. But yeah, I made sure when I decided I was going to go off coffee, I shopped around for some of the best tea. So, I have really good teas. Right now, I'm drinking a tea that was gifted to me by a friend who knew I was going through the process, and this is an oolong, a really really nice oolong. So yeah, I had to do that. I had to kind of continue to create a special ritual around the tea. Yeah, the rituals are a really really big part of it. I would say about the whole coffee thing or the tea thing. Yeah. I think rituals in general are very important. Like
Yeah.
rituals are, they're not really a big part of, in our culture. In some cultures, they're more prominent. But I think rituals are kind of an important part of life, and they can look different ways, but they do serve a purpose in our lives. So in terms of connecting, connecting with spirit, connecting with the all or whatever in our rituals, being fully present in the moment, that sort of thing. Rituals really bring us into the moment, ground us, so they're really important. But at any rate, so yeah, I've got
True
two, yes. I've got, so Julie, yes, I have 2 books. I'm working on it. You should see the paper on my wall and the stuff around. I just bought my ISBN numbers for the books, and yeah. And so I'm definitely working through my timeline for the Wildflowers and Present Tenses will be out in November. This Amazing Body will be out in October. And so I'm working on that, that timeline, and getting a little nervous, to be honest with you. It's like, okay, you decided you were going to put out 2 this year. So let's get to it. So, oh, I put out 1 last year. I can do 2 this year. So why not?
No big deal. It's no big deal.
Raise the bar. Raise the bar.
Raise the bar. Raise the bar. Yeah. So and by the way, I plan on when I finish the Wildflower series, getting into some fiction. Yeah, I'm definitely going to do it. I already have a series in mind. Very lesbianic. So but
Good.
of course, because that's how I roll. So
There's more material out there.
yeah, lots of material, but that'll be 2022 that I jump into that. So every year I'll be putting something out.
You could do some research by sitting in the corner at Penny's bar. I recognize now that the reason why I don't spend a lot of time there is because I just don't have the patience to be at that level, whether it be the level of cheers, let's do shots or whatever. Like either I'm in my mind, I'm like this beer doesn't taste good to me, or this drink doesn't taste good to me, or I'm just not like at their same level. But yeah, when you are the sober one in the bar, you can see things that other people cannot see. You can watch relationships, you can watch from the outside looking in, kind of like the part of your book. I felt like I was outside the cottage looking through the windows, the flowers, the vines, looking in on your life together. It very much feels like that. And so Penny can tell when I'm like one and done, and she'll be like, you're leaving, aren't you? I can tell by that look on your face. And it has nothing to do with, I feel like I could be doing other things or I'm better than other people. It has nothing to do with that. It's just that I just don't feel comfortable in that space. And I think a lot of it has to do with the amount of time I've been spending on my own, that I lose energy being around a lot of people.
Yeah. And
really
also,
people identifying me as an extrovert, which I am not an extrovert. I am definitely an introvert that has had to play the role of an extrovert for a really long time. And so I renew my energy and my strength in my alone time. And it takes a lot out of me to be in a room with all the energy swirling around me and being polite. And
I can definitely relate to that. I've been sober since 2011, and the other issue with me and going out places more so is other people feeling uncomfortable because I am not drinking, like that makes me feel more uncomfortable, the oh come on, shaking you, type of stuff. Like I don't have a problem being around, anybody or, celebrating with people. Like I've been around, for a long time. I made my choice for me, but other people immediately take my choice as persecution to them, and it puts them in a mood, that they're not enjoying things the same way that they would, which makes it uncomfortable for me to be there, and then that odd man out thing kind of happens, but like, I think also a lot of people in one room is overwhelming for me, because just one-on-one conversations are really exciting for me, you know, let alone to try to be in a, you know, big group of people and being that excited too, you know, or, you know, sharing in the same way. You're not coming across the same way, and it's not as close of a connection as you'd like to be having.
Yeah. And I can relate to what you were saying too, Julie. I think I've always been uncomfortable in bars. I've never really been fully comfortable in bars. And even when I was drinking, I would drink because I was uncomfortable, you know. And then when you're like the only sober one, and I've also had that experience at Pride festivals, like, you know, by Sunday afternoon, it was like, oh my God, am I the only sober person here? And I would get kind of uncomfortable in that kind of environment. But just to let you know, when I said lesbianic, I meant that the characters would be, you know, women loving women, but it's like a whole other, like, these are characters that are fashioned after the archangels. These are going to be some bad motherfuckers. These are going to be like, we're talking Gabriella. There's Ariel. There's like all of the, like, you know, the archangels, and they're going to be sisters. And then there's Lucy, who's actually for Lucifer, who's going to be the baddest ass of all, the shadow one. So yeah, no, it's going to be. And there was, and just to give you a heads up, there was a mystery school, a little known mystery school way, way back, that believed that you could actually create life and give birth to someone without copulation. It could be an energetic birth where you could implant like a being in a woman's womb without intercourse. And so that's how these women came to be. So they came to be by two women who knew this mysterious process, birthed these women. So these women were birthed by women. So it's like a whole freaky deaky kind of thing I got going on in my head here.
But now don't they have artificial sperm now, so women can have women can make
but
babies.
That's not how they're doing it, though.
It's really expensive, but you can't.
Talk about rituals.
It's reality, though.
Yeah, but talk about rituals. This is actually a very elaborate ritual that they do that goes on for hours and hours, which creates an energetic being that is implanted in one of the woman's wombs. So that's some
awesome.
Freaky deaky shit that I plan on writing about. So, but that's 2022. I got to get through the books that I'm doing before I can get into the real freaky fiction stuff that I want to jump into. So.
Boom, drops text.
But anyway, enough about that. You guys are freaking awesome. I love every one of you. Thank you so much for joining us. Taylor, she ended up not being able to have the connection she needed to be with us this week. And I do miss her reading excerpts. I wasn't really going to read my own excerpts because I just miss the way she does it. So, but the conversation was absolutely priceless. You guys are amazing. And I just love spending my Sunday mornings with you, and look forward to. There are a few more stories left, so I'm going to do this until we run out of stories, and then Taylor says we should think of what else to do next, and maybe I'll start doing stuff about recipes and food to get ready for the Wildflowers and Wooden Spoons that's coming out in November. So we'll see.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Well, love you too. Thanks
love
for
you
spending
guys.
Sunday morning with me.
Absolutely. It's been a joy. And thanks, Robin. Thank you, Julie. Thank you, Ashley. Thank you, Anoki. It's been such a pleasure. I hope to see you guys soon.
You too.
Have a
Have a great week, ladies.
Have a great week, you guys. Bye.